Good morning. We're here today to talk about a new study published in the Archives of General Psychiatry examining the relationship between cannabis use and the age of onset of psychotic disorders. The findings in a nutshell are that psychosis that's associated with cannabis use appears to come on an average of 3 years earlier than psychosis related to other causes. An earlier onset of 2.7 years is actually quite significant, and it's significant for two reasons. The first is that in those 2.7 years you can achieve quite a lot: complete school, have your first relationship, maybe get your first job and go overseas. And secondly, one of the most important determinants of the severity of schizophrenia is the age of onset. So people who develop schizophrenia later have a more mild condition, and people who develop schizophrenia early have a more severe condition. And by more severe, I mean more time in hospital, more medication, more adverse events associated with the schizophrenia.
This is a very exciting and important study. There's been a lot of uncertainty in the field about the relationship between cannabis and psychosis, or one of the particular psychoses, schizophrenia, and this is a definitive and important finding.
From my perspective as Director of the National Cannabis Prevention and Information Centre, this is yet another very powerful piece of information. We know that young people can make sensible decisions about their cannabis use, and they deserve to know about this very powerful, very precise piece of information about the effect that cannabis might have on their likelihood of developing schizophrenia and other psychotic illnesses.
Well, I think that the group of people who are at most of risk are young people with a family history of a psychotic illness, and also those who are perhaps struggling at school and have had early difficulties in life. People who are a bit marginal in their coping in any case. They should be the people who we should be most concerned about. Although my own view is that we should be concerned about any young person smoking cannabis, not just high-risk groups. It's important to remember that the average age of onset of schizophrenia is in the 20s. So most people who develop schizophrenia will have developed it by the time they're 25, and that includes cannabis users and non-cannabis users. So we're talking about young people. We're talking about people who develop schizophrenia age 17 to 23 and started smoking cannabis 13, 14, 15.
So intervening early or preventing, and this information gives us big hints about the public health ramifications. If you can reduce the rates of cannabis use in young people, then maybe you can reduce at least the onset of schizophrenia and preserve a few more years of health, or in fact stop schizophrenia developing in the first place.
The real challenge is where we go from here, and how we communicate this to the people that are most at risk. In my view, some of the cannabis campaigns, both here and internationally, have been aimed at a somewhat older age group than the people who are most at risk. So the challenge to my mind is how to communicate this to 12 and 13-year-olds without paradoxically suggesting that cannabis is quite okay. One thing that comes to mind, you can talk to parents, people who are in their 40s, I suppose, are quite able to make decisions about whether to smoke cannabis or not. If you think of a family with a 45-year-old father and a 15-year-old son, if they're both to smoke cannabis, then the father stands a small chance of developing a small excessive chance of developing schizophrenia, where the risk for the 15-year-old might be 5 times greater. And in my view, parental cannabis smoking increases the acceptability and often even the availability of cannabis for young people.